Dan Tom here with Home of Fight over at Xtreme Couture, talking with GM, head coach, the man himself, Eric Nicksick. Eric, thank you for the time again. How are you?
What's up, dude? Good to see you.
Hey, always good to see you. We've got plenty to talk about in the MMA world. Never a shortage, but we've got two of the last pay-per-view cards, which we're definitely going to touch on. You've got some fighters on there, maybe some predictions for this weekend on those top two cards. I mean, they are super fights.
Yeah.
But first things first, man. We saw, Francis Ngannou post about 3 weeks ago on his IG that it's been a year. He's getting that itch, right? And if he's saying it on his Instagram account, right,
Sure.
I got to imagine you guys are having conversations. How is Francis, and what's the temperature like, so to speak?
Well, so he FaceTimed a couple days ago for Knox's birthday, and the first thing I noticed was like his face was like super lean, and I was like, damn, bro, like how much you weighing right now? And he's like 260. And I was like, dude, there's never been that light out of camp. I think the lightest I remember us getting was 255 when he fought Jairzinho. So he's in super good shape right now. He's been doing a lot of road work. His knees are feeling better. So nothing really fight related that we spoke about, but just more about just what his training has been looking like. And he was in really good shape, so I was happy to see it.
So does that mean you got that smile on your face? Does that mean when he does, come in here, whether he has an assignment, I assume he'll probably be in here before he has an official assignment, does that make you happy as a coach, knowing that kind of pre-camp work is almost maybe out of the way?
And I think it just shows the style and dedication that Francis always has, right? Like, I know he doesn't have anything booked or scheduled, but as you know, it takes so much time to get into that type of shape that if you get a fight and you're 8 weeks out and you're spending 2.5, 3 weeks of getting in shape, now you really only have a 5-week camp, right? So if he can come in and hit the ground running, then that means we have all work on the 8-week camp if he decides to get a fight. We're just ahead of the curve when it comes to that kind of stuff.
That makes perfect sense. And let me ask you, parlaying off that, you can't, obviously, nor would you fully speak for Francis, but did what you just said, maybe play a part as far as accepting these shorter notice opportunities? Obviously, Jake Paul was in the headlines. It was an impromptu, short notice invite, but, and Francis said what he had to say, as far as, not taking that kind of offer too seriously. But what was your opinion? Did you speak to Francis about that?
Not even a little bit. I didn't even know anything was going on with it until I think somebody sent me like the back and forth with him and Jake. And I was like, well, where did this all come from? So I had no idea about any of that stuff was even in the mix. But again, it's up to Francis on what he decides. I'm the guy where, I'll get a phone call from him and he'll say, hey, we got this and be ready this. And I'm showing up and I'm there.
Fantastic. And for what it's worth, Francis did come out and do an interview since then recently. And, was just answering the usual questions about, saying that, hey, him and Jon Jones is still the best fight that the UFC can make. Do you agree with that, Eric?
100%. I think that's the fight we've all wanted. And I think everybody, all the parties want, even the UFC, I think everybody wants this to happen. And again, like we saw, you and I spoke about this last time, it's just, we got to meet somewhere in the middle. And if hopefully one day these guys can work it out. I feel like a broken record. We spoke of this ad nauseum with the same sort of sentiment, but on paper and where the heavyweight division is as a whole, I feel like this is the fight to make.
Surely, and you guys absolutely deserve credit for keeping that same energy, that open energy to all this. Sure. But what hasn't been the same is the heavyweight division surrounding Francis, right? Obviously, out of your control, not in your camp, but we saw how that Aspinall Gane fight, obviously you have experience going against Gane and that camp. I got to ask you what your thoughts on that fight was and the fallout, obviously, with the air quote controversy. It was a foul, right, and these things happen, but what was your take?
Just unfortunate, right? Like it was a lot of buildup, and I was excited to see both of them. I was excited to see how each of them was going to approach their game plan. And just as a fan, I just feel like we just got cut short. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. I understand Tom's side completely, and I understand how Gane felt. Like, it wasn't an intentional foul, just something that happens in the sport. So all in all, I hope they just get it rebooked and they can run it back as soon as possible.
Absolutely. That's good from the fan perspective, but I got to ask you from the coach and analyst perspective, where we kind of can, nerd out a bit. Do you take anything, or can you take anything from that short sample size of what we saw from that fight?
I don't think you can as much, especially when for me, game planning a 5-round fight, there's things I might want to try to get executed in round 1 so I can set things up for later on down the fight, like in rounds 3, 4, and 5. I was kind of surprised in the regards of I would assume Tom would have fit in a little earlier and attempted a shot just a little earlier. By doing so, I think that would negate or slow down a lot of Gane's movement because of the threat of the takedown, and then allow your striking to be dictated off of your level change. So I thought I would see a little bit more wrestling right away. But, I mean, the fight didn't last long enough to even get into those standpoints, right? I mean, maybe 30 seconds left in the round, that's when he decides to take a shot. I don't know. But I think Gane did some really good things in the beginning, too, with his footwork and his angles. So it was just about to start heating up, and then we were hit with that foul.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of fouls, that wasn't the only eye poke of the night. Yeah. And I bring this up, Eric. I didn't give you any preface on this, and I know you and fighters all class like Kai Kamaka never make an excuse, but he did compete that night against Diego Brandao in a tough enough title fight that everybody was raving about. Amazing fight. Definitely don't want to take away from the positives of it, but from the outsider perspective, a lot of the highlights I was seeing, boy, I want to ask if Kai's eyes are okay, because it looked like he took a decent amount of eye pokes. Yeah. You're never one to complain or make excuses or take away from Diego Brandao, but I got to ask you, from strictly the coach and corner perspective, was that one of many hurdles that Kai had to deal with that night?
Yes and no, but I think it's, like you said, it's just part of the sport. A fabulous ref in Big John, and I think he might have missed the 1 or 2 fouls, but getting into the corner, Kai ended up getting cut on the top of his head, and then he said he wasn't really able to see out of his eye, and then I didn't know if that was due to the blood. Like in the moment you're like, oh, is it the blood dripping in your eyes, or was it because of the eye poke? And it was actually the eye poke, it wasn't the blood, because the blood was coming down this way, and I was like, no, you're good, like it's blood's coming down the side of your head. And he's like, and he didn't say it was from the eye poke, so we just kind of moved it on. But a couple of fouls here and there, but I mean that tends to happen in the sport, and how do you adapt and overcome?
Yeah, and not to dwell too much on that, but it kind of parlays into what we saw last weekend with Mark Smith in the co-main event, maybe a week removed from this interview, I should say. And we saw a fight kind of get restarted, and we've seen these under different contexts, right? Yeah. And oftentimes you see, whether it's sometimes the fighter to the corner, but oftentimes the corner to the fighter, as you know, there's almost like an emotion in there that you guys try to keep tampered down. If you explode too much, it could be bad, especially if you don't know the fight's over. Can you speak to that point as far as what that can do to a fighter? Because I'm sure you've seen this many times before, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember ever seeing a restart like that, though.
That bad.
Right? Like, the fight is over, the guy gets finished, and then you're literally like celebrating with your team, and then you're like, oh, hold on, restart the whole entire fight. So I could not imagine what the emotional roller coaster was like for Antidillia in that moment, and for Waldo. You know what I mean? Like in losing the fight, and all of a sudden there's this infraction. How did that end up getting called? Was it the replay that called the eye poke? Like, how did they end up getting that called out? I don't even know.
They restarted it based on the premise that they said Mark Smith didn't wave off the fight. However, he did allow Waldo to take like 5 or 6 shots before he decided to step in there, which was kind of one of those indications. The ref kind of doesn't see the foul. Sure. Maybe they hear it and they see the fighter reaction. They put it together a little late. Sure. It seemed like one of those. I don't want to speak for it, but for Mark Smith, but yeah.
I thought for some reason, and when I was looking, I didn't know if the replay official, because sometimes if there's a foul and the replay official catches it, he'll put a light on, like a red light, and then he sees it. So I didn't know if it was the replay official who was ever on the screen or Mark Smith saw it after the fact. But in my 18 years, bro, I've never seen that happen before.
Well, according to the Nevada Athletic Commission, they did a ruling and said it was, quote, perfect protocol.
Okay. Well, I mean, I believe him.
I'm not sure if I do, but that's not my space to talk to about that here.
I've pissed these guys off enough, so.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to put you in a spot. However, on that very same card, though, I do got to ask you, we did have a fight flag that was able to go through from UFC's third party. Now the FBI is investigating with Isaac Dalgarian. Again, everything's alleged, and these things take a while to come out. Sure. But what I want to ask you about it is, since then it's come out, we've seen coaches that I myself, and I'm sure you and other colleagues I've heard sing praises of Mark Montoya come out and try to get ahead of it. And unfortunately, the internet's going to internet. We know that, and it's almost unfortunate to see somebody come out and give us actually good information and just honest, genuine. And he's kind of getting dragged for it. So my question to you, Eric, as a coach, do you see that? Do you sympathize with your colleague there, and B, do you sympathize with your colleague because all you coaches, to no fault of your guys' own, could be in that same situation? God forbid.
Man, let me tell you this. Like, I've known Mark for over 15 years. He's just a class act. He's one of the best coaches in the game. And when you know what a guy like that goes through on a weekly basis, when you run a big gym, you have a big camp, the time, effort, and energy that you're putting forth towards your fighters, it just doesn't make any sense for him to be involved in anything like that. So me personally knowing Mark, I just know the integrity that he carries and the type of person that he is. And again, like you said, like, we don't know what happened with Isaac. We don't know the situation at hand. And I'm always going to give Mark the benefit of the doubt, just knowing his workload and the type of individual that he is. I felt bad for him, man. I actually sent him a text. I just said, hey, love you, brother. When he was going through the cancer thing and other things within my career and his career, we've always leaned on each other a bunch, and I have the utmost love and respect for him. So I hope this kind of dies out and people really understand, like, this dude's one of the good guys in the sport.
Yeah, when you think of high integrity individuals, it's not a long list, but I'd argue Mark Montoya is on there for most people who've met him.
Awesome guy. Great guy.
100%. Now, to this card this weekend, we've got UFC 322. Before I get to those top fights, though, there is a prospect named Mateus Camillo on there. And will you be in the corner over in MSG this weekend, Eric?
Yeah, I'll take another flight for him. So we were out in Abu Dhabi. I made it out to Abu Dhabi. I landed. It was about 2 p.m. there. It was Thursday of weight cut. And then Mateus like, I'm going to catch a nap. You catch a nap, 5 hours. We'll get up, we'll cut weight. And I was like, all right, cool. So I wake up, I literally turn the tub on. We're starting to get the tub getting hot and everything else. And then Giff walks in and he's like, yo, our opponent's out. And I was like, you're fucking with me. You got to be, no way, dude. And he's like, yeah, bro, opponent's out, fight's off. So thankfully, the UFC did a really good job of just getting me on the next flight out. I was able to get back home and corner Kai and Maki, and then they rebooked us for MSG this week. So I couldn't be happier for him. A tough veteran in Slava. It's a really good fight, but we got to mind our P's and Q's in that situation because the game plan has completely shifted into a different opponent. But Mateus has the skill set to beat anybody, in my opinion.
Awesome. I was going to say, I'm not sure how much say you have in the matchmaking. I'm taking you're more of the, professional killer type where you just give me the picture, give me the information, and I'll help equip you the best I can sort of deal.
Straight up mercenary, man. You slide the name across the desk and we'll go out to look to execute it,
Fantastic. And also being executed on top of the card, we have not one but 2 super fights. I know the champions have to relinquish their titles to move up now, but we essentially got Zhang Weili moving up to face Valentina Shevchenko. So let me ask you about that co-main event first. Excitement level, can you give us any forecast or prediction if you don't have a bias or too much of a connection, Coach?
None. And actually really looking forward to this fight. I'd like to see how Weili fares without having to cut that much weight, because I know it took a lot for her to cut to 15. So I think she's going to be bigger, stronger for the division, but I just feel like Valentina is going to be too much for all-around skill set wise. I see Valentina actually utilizing a lot more wrestling in this fight, being able to take Weili down and control her. That's kind of how I see the fight going and playing out in my head.
Yeah, classic neutralizer performance. Difficult fighters to neutralize are both sides of the main event. You got Jack Della Maddalena defending his welterweight title. Of course, arguably number 1 pound-for-pound fighter, Islam Makhachev relinquishes lightweight, moving up to welterweight. You got to be excited on that one, right?
Oh, 100%. And I think that, this is that folklore of Islam that I've heard about for so long. When Ali came to the gym years ago saying, wait till you see this kid perform. He's beating up guys at 185, and everything else. So the weight class, the weight jump to me, I think this is perfect for his body type and his style, his size. And then, dude, I'm really excited to see how JDM performs almost in the same style of fight, but maybe a better opponent like he had with Bilal, maybe a little bit better technician when it comes to his grappling and wrestling. So does Islam take the mistakes that Bilal made and the good things that Bilal did in his fight and carry it over and see if there's any adjustments that he can make in the JDM fight?
Fantastic stuff. And of course, closing out the year, the final pay-per-view card of the year, which sounds crazy, UFC 323. I know we're looking in the future here, but you've got Mansour Abdul Malik on that card and in a fun matchup. Any thoughts on that card and how it's progressing with a prospect like Mansour?
Oh man, it's so much fun. He's just such a great kid. His vision, his creativity. The thing for me is learning better how to coach him better. From my standpoint, it's like, now, not not giving him set combinations or routes, maybe giving him some meat and potato ideas and allowing him to maintain his creative control in those moments, allowing him to be the athlete, right? I think we kind of saw that in the Cody Brundage fight. He looked a little slow and sluggish in the first couple rounds. And I think, I take blame for that. I think that we might have given him too much bandwidth in those moments, looking for certain things. And then going into round 3, Brad and I just started talking shit to him, and we're like, yo, dude, you should put this guy away by now. Like, you got to get your shit going. And then all of a sudden he comes out flying knee and everything else and does his thing. So, and that comes with over time. I've been with Mansoor since he was 1-0 as a pro. We've got to work a lot together, but not at this highest of levels. So it's just a growth thing and a maturation thing, and I'm super excited for him in this fight.
Well, we're super excited to see it. You've obviously got not just 1, 2, 3. You've got fighters on all different levels you've been giving us through the years. So it's been really fun to watch the progression. It's been a really honor for you to always give us your time. Thank you so much, Eric.
Oh, my pleasure, brother. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Miss you, man.
Miss you too.